All right, this is one of the videos in the Train the Trainer series of getting the plus out of zipForm Plus. And this video is going to cover sending the documents for e-signature. Some of what we're going to get into in this class is selecting your return folder, reordering your signers, and adding and manipulating text boxes on a document. And of course, then we're going to send the documents for e-signature. You'll also get to see in this portion of class the seller's disclosure notice fully working, so that Texas Realtors seller disclosure notice where the seller can complete the document. So right now I am in the transactions, and I'm in a transaction, the transaction that we started during class. So in the other videos, this is the same transaction I was using then, and we are going to send some documents for signature. So we have already gone into the listing agreement and completed the listing agreement mainly via the cover sheet. So it's really awesome to see that cover sheet fully in use and how it works. So let's continue on from where we left off, and I'm going to go to e-sign at the top left. After clicking on e-sign, I need to create a new signature packet. So at the top left-hand side, I'm going to click on New. And this is where I'll be selecting the documents I'm sending for signature. Now, of course, I've already mentioned with the cover sheet, we are not sending that for signature. I am not sending the client my checklist. I am going to start with the information about brokerage services, the consumer protection notice. We will send the seller's disclosure notice and the listing agreement. If you had any additional documents that were external documents that you wanted to add at this time, at the top right-hand side of the screen is where you can add an external document. Remember that you do have folders down here as well. I'm going to go ahead and open up the Austin Energy Audit Forms folder. And if this property was in the city of Austin, using Austin Energy as their service provider, and the home was 10 years old or older, I would go ahead and send this list of documents to the client as well. Okay, but I'm going to close. The first option on the screen that you're going to see is the signature packet name, and it defaults to signature packet 1, and it will continue on with 2, 3, 4, etc. as you create new signature packets within this transaction. You can rename the signature packet if you want to name it something that you're going to remember what that signature packet was for. Okay, so I don't know what you would want to title it, but here you go. Something that would just identify what was that signature packet being used for, what was I sending. However, in the end, this name is not going to matter because I am going to designate a return folder for the signed documents. If I don't designate a return folder for those documents, they would be returned into a folder that's created by the system that's called Signature Packet 1 or whatever title I put here. And each time I send a group of documents for signature, the system would create a new folder for that set of documents within the transaction. Okay. So below the signature packet name is where I have my signing service. I would go ahead and use the signing service that the majority of people in class are using, okay? If the majority of people in class are using digital ink, go ahead and switch over to digital ink. It's okay to do, okay? This is an advanced class for zipForm Plus, not an advanced class for DocuSign. We have one of those. All right, so you can change your signature service, signing service right here. Below that is where you choose a folder for returned signed documents to go into automatically. Okay, I love this. This helps me stay organized. So I'm going to click on this row. The pop-up window that appears will allow me to select my my signed documents folder. If I wanted to put them in the final signatures, I could, but I'm not going to at this point because they might come back and say, oh, we made a mistake on something, we need to redo that, whatever the case is. Okay, so I'm adding these documents into the signed document folder. That's what you see right here at the top left-hand side of the screen. And I'm going to click Done. So now it shows that the documents will be returned to that signed document folder once the signatures are in place. Okay, I can add additional documents now if I choose to. However, I've already selected the documents that I wanted to send. That was our first step. Okay, but I want you to notice that these rows have a little icon on the left to drag and drop to reorder. So if I want to change the order of the documents, I can. So I can move those around. All right, now I'm going to go to the top right hand side of the screen and click Next. And this is where I'm going to select the individuals that will be signing the actual documents. Now, you only select people that are actually signing the documents in this screen. So I'm going to go ahead and select the clients, seller 1 and seller 2. Whoops, sorry, that was myself, the agent. Okay, but if there's a form that the agent needs to sign, then yes, you do want to include that agent. And for this example, we're sending the listing agreement. So the listing agent is party to that agreement. He or she is signing it. They need to be selected here. The mistake that I see made most often is people will try to select themselves as a signer on a contract. When they're the agent, they're not the buyer or seller, and it will trip you up in the system if you accidentally do that. Notice here at the very top of the screen, my system is pulling the transaction parties. Okay, you do have an option to create a new party, but always remember to go back and add that individual to your cover sheet because their name needs to be on the documents, not just one of the signers. Okay, so they should be in the documents. And then you do have some options here to pull contacts from other sources. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this window. On the next screen, at the top of the screen, you do have an option to add an additional signer. Again, I would do that on the cover sheet. I would back out of where we're at this point and update the cover sheet, make sure the listing agreement, contracts, etc. are correct. If I get to the screen and realize I don't have one of the signers in place. Okay, so top right hand side of the screen is where I have my CC list. So if I want to carbon copy somebody else in this transaction, I certainly can here. Of course, it does indicate that you yourself will be copied, and then you have a list of additional people that you can copy. Notice that you're just separating the email addresses by a semicolon and adding the next email address. Okay, now I'm now seeing the signing order of the individuals involved in this transaction. So with this signing order, you can reorder the people involved. So if, for example, if Tracy has more knowledge about the property that they're selling than Joanne, then I would want to move Tracy to number 1 in the signing order. So I would just flip them and drag and drop Tracy to the top of the list. What I've seen people try to do or want to do is they want to put both individuals as number 1 so that both sellers are receiving the documents at the exact same time. There is a downfall to doing this. And part of it does include or involve the seller's disclosure notice. So with the seller's disclosure notice, only one person can physically complete all of the fields. They can sit down together and they can talk about it together, but only one of them is physically typing in the fields on the seller's disclosure notice. If I make both parties number 1, they would be receiving that document at the same time, and if they're trying to open it and complete it at the same time, it will cause an issue with the data saving, okay? So one individual will be designated as party number one who will complete the documents first. Then that completed document, once they sign and they complete their signature, those documents would then be sent to party number two, where Joanne would be reviewing the information and signing. Of course, if Joanne notices something incorrect at that time, she can quit and contact the agent and say, hey, I think Tracy made a mistake on the documents. Can you resend those to him and let him start over? Okay. And then the agent would be the final person to receive the documents. They're going to review everything one final time and sign. All right. Top right hand side of the screen is where I'm going to go to the next option. This system is always going to pop up this little window asking if you want cybersecurity. What is cybersecurity? Cybersecurity is an added layer on the login for the signers of the documents, and it would have them create a two-factor authentication where they create a password, and then they also would receive a code via text or email that they would enter when signing in. My recommendation is we're not doing this because they have a hard enough time logging in already. So I'm going to say no thanks, but that's completely up to the users. All right, when the documents load in the next screen, this is first going to show me the first document in the list was my IABS. Okay, what's really nice about this IABS is the signature or initials, are already in place. So I can see where Tracy's initials are going to appear and where Joanne's initials are going to appear. Now, what you're seeing at this time is just an example so that you are aware of how the system is working. Notice that the box around Tracy's initials is green, Joanne's are blue. That's an indication as to when I add fields to a document. So if I add a checkbox or initials anywhere else on the document, when I have Tracy selected and I move over a box to the document, notice that box is green. Tracy is green. If I had selected Joanne and moved over the text box to the form, then it's going to be blue because her actions are blue. So I just want you to notice that those are color coded. And of course I can remove these little boxes if I want to delete those. Just wanted to show you that those color codes do matter. And that's why they're showing you the initials inside of the color coded boxes. All right, so let me flip this back over to Tracy. Okay, their initials and dates are already in place. Now I have the consumer protection notice. Now, not all, but some brokers do require the consumer protection notice to be signed, even though there is really no physical place for a signature. They don't have that added to the document. But just like I showed you earlier, just on the previous page, I can move over a signature line for Tracy and Joanne. All I have to do is select who am I adding a signature for, and then I'm going to drag and drop the signature box over. I can just bump them right up next to each other after the date appears. So notice that the signature appeared and then the date immediately appeared thereafter. The system's going to add that date. You can remove it if you need to for any reason, but I don't. Now I can switch over to Joanne and just bump hers up right next to that final date on Tracy's signature, and it adds the date for her as well. Okay. Now we're going to get into the listing agreement. So on the listing agreement, again, I can drag and drop text boxes over. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down, and one of the examples that I mentioned previously is if you wanted to allow the client to enter their list price instead of you entering it. So the agent entered the list price on this particular document. However, if I was going to have the client complete that, I would have seller one or party one complete it, and you can just drag and drop the box over to the page. So it would be right here if the agent hadn't completed that field already. Okay, so when you drag and drop that little box over, notice here at the top right hand side I have a settings icon. And this settings icon will allow me to identify, is this a mandatory field? Is it a read-only field? And am I including a signer's name? Is it going to have multiple values or multiple lines, etc.? And what is the value in that field? So if this field is a read only and I'm typing in the value, this is where I put the value or whatever I want to say in that text box. Okay, so I would type in what I want to say if it's a read only field. Now, if the client is the one completing the field, I'm going to say that it's mandatory. Okay, I'm not going to add a value because they're going to type in their own value. Okay, so that's how I can add a text box. I'm going to delete this one and I'm going to show you adding another one. I really think that seeing this more than once just helps reinforce what we're teaching. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down to another place on the form that you might want the client to fill in some information. There are multiple places for them to fill in information, don't get me wrong, but here's another realistic example. Okay, so you can see as I'm scrolling, all of the places have initials. I have Linda Listing Agent, Tracy Lee Van Berklio, and Joanne Van Berklio. All right, so I'm going to keep scrolling, and once we get down to, let's use foreign person, okay, as our example. So here we're going to have the client check a box for, are they a foreign person? Now, hopefully we've already had this discussion, this conversation. This is something that you should be talking about with your clients. But if I want to add a checkbox to the document, I have the checkboxes here on the left. Now, of course, this is where Tracy Lee, he's going to be identifying, are we foreign or not? So it's going to be seller 1 who is making those choices. That's why I like to have a 1 and 2. And then I'm going to just drag and drop a checkbox right here, position it over the box that's already on the page. We'll drag and drop one more over so they can check either box. Okay, let's go to the settings icon associated with those little boxes. So this is going to identify, is this mandatory? Is it read only where the box is already checked? Okay, or do I want to make this a radio button instead of a checkbox? Okay, so you can change it into a radio button as well. So with a radio button, the radio button is not a mandatory field, so they can choose, am I checking the radio button or not? Okay, so I can do the same with the checkbox. I can say it's not a mandatory field, but do I want to check or do I want a radio button? Is it already checked or is it read only? Okay, so you have all of those different options here. Of course, the radio button is a dot. Okay, and typically with radio buttons, you're getting to select multiple options when you have dots. Check boxes indicate you're checking one or the other. Okay, so I'm not going to make the box mandatory, and the reason is they could check, oops, there we go, apply. They can check either is or is not. So I don't want to make these both mandatory or that won't work correctly. So I'm going to say it's not mandatory. I'm going to talk to the client about that they do need to select one of those two. However, I can't make both boxes mandatory. It just won't make sense that way. Okay, so just keep scrolling through. Signatures are in place. Okay, and then here is our beautiful Texas Realtors seller disclosure notice. Look at all of the boxes here. This is wonderful. This allows the client to complete this document online. Now, I have had people in a panic call me and say, Leslie, this seller's disclosure notice looks weird. I'm trying to delete all of these little boxes. Is there a way for me to delete all of them at one time? I'm like, oh, no. Don't delete them at all. That's how the client completes those documents online. So notice that the seller's initials are in place on the documents. Their signature will be in place at the bottom as well. So really at this point, we're ready to send for signature. I've added some text or check boxes. I've showed you how to add text boxes. There are some other options here that I'll mention real quick. There's a read verification and I acknowledge or agree option. So if I have a page in my my list of forms, say the Austin Energy Audit forms, for example, if I don't have a place for the clients to sign, I don't need a signature. I don't particularly want to put a signature on there. I just want a verification that they read it. I can drag and drop the icon for that they read the document over to that page. It's kind of invisible when you see it, but it is just a verification on their side. When they're signing their documents, they have to check or click something that said, yes, I read this. There's also an acknowledge or agree option. Again, when they're in the signing process, it wouldn't be a full signature or initials. It's just an acknowledgement that they agree to something on that document. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and send for signature. At the top right hand side of the screen, notice you have options here. You have options for save and quit. If I've made a mistake, I can quit. I can save where I'm at and pick this up again later if I need to. We're going to go ahead and send. So top right hand side of the screen is where I click send. And a pop-up window is going to appear where I can customize my message to the recipient. So it starts off with the title as first set of documents. Well, that's what I renamed the signature packet previously, but that may or may not make sense to the recipient. I can add or completely edit this. So I can just say, please, except for I hit my cap lock. Please sign this first set of documents. All right, and I can change the wording down here of the message and include more information on my signature if I'd like, and go ahead and send this for signature. So once I've sent for signature, okay, it verifies it was successfully started. And once I've sent, it takes me to this screen here where at the top right, I want to immediately point out your modify, cancel, and close options. So if I get to the screen, and I've done this, I get to the screen and I realized, oh my goodness, I made a mistake. I can immediately click modify, and that's going to suspend this transaction so that they can't sign anything they shouldn't be signing. Or I can cancel out. Close means I will close this window and the system will just continue on with the process of signatures. Okay. Here on the right hand side, I have email buttons. If I wanted to just jump over and immediately send somebody an email, I could. The documents have already been sent. If I want to view the documents, I can, or I can download the documents that I've sent to my computer. You do have a download all at the bottom left. I do encourage you to do a little group message with your clients and just let them know, hey, Tracy and Joanne, I've sent the documents to you for signature. Tracy, you are signer number 1. Once you have completed your signatures, then Joanne will receive her copy. Joanne, you will not receive your copy to sign until Tracy has completed and signed his copy. So make it very clear as to what they should expect in the process. Little group text message works great. Top right hand side of the screen, I'm going to go ahead and close. And I want to show you how to reopen that signature packet if I need to make a correction or change anything. So I'm going to go to my main transaction screen because typically when this comes up is when you've already walked away from your computer that day and you realize that there was a mistake, something needs to be changed, we had a typo, whatever it is. Okay, so when I come into my system, I'm going to be in my transactions. I'm going to click to open the transaction that I need to modify. Okay. And here across the top of the screen, I'm going to jump over to the documents. Make sure that you are correcting your cover sheet first. If there was a typo on a name, email address, whatever, correct that on the cover sheet first. Then you can go into the document itself if there's a correction that needs to be made on one of the documents. Now at the top of the screen, I'm going to jump over to the history in the transaction. Now I'm on this gray toolbar. Don't go up to the dark blue toolbar. We're on the gray toolbar in that transaction. So you can see the transaction name here on the left. And I'm going to go to the history. Okay. And I can see my signature packets in the screen. So a signature packet is identified by the fountain point tip of the pen here. And on the right-hand side, you just have an option to check status. When you think check status, think edit, okay? Because it's clicking on check status that gets you into your editing options. So I'm gonna go ahead and click check status. And this is where I can make some changes. Now you can already see, yes, I used a fake email address, okay? And the system's already notifying me that the email bounced. Okay, that is not a real email address. I do this for class purposes, but I can see now, oh, well, why haven't they signed it? Because it was a bad email address. Do I want to correct that here? Or do I want to go back to, again, the documents and the cover page and make my correction on that cover page? So let me show you real quick. What do you do if somebody's changed their mind? And they say, you know what, you sent me those documents, but I'm not going to sign those documents. You know, whatever the case is, we've changed our mind. We're not putting in an offer on that property. We've changed our mind and we're going to put in an offer on a different property. Can you please stop sending me those documents? So again, we're in the history of the transaction. We opened up the check status option for the signature packet. And at the top right-hand side is where I can cancel this packet, okay? So I can click right here to cancel and stop that from sending them requests to sign, okay? So the packet has been canceled. All right, do I need to edit the packet? Do I need to restart? I don't need to do either one. I just want to leave it alone, and I'm going to go back to view the history and details. So this takes me right back to where we left off in the signing process. I'm done. I can close this window. I'm not going to resume. I'm not going to modify. I'm going to close. I am done canceling. Okay. So that's how you very quickly and easily cancel out a transaction. Okay, or signature packet in a transaction. All right, there you go. Hope that was helpful. Thank you for watching.